called life. I hope you're having yourselves a great morning this morning, and we're so proud to be here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports truly meets that thing called life. So however you're with us, thank you so much for hanging out on all of our many outlets, be it on youtube.com/wakeupcalldt, facebook.com/wakeupcalldt, as well as on facebook.com/livenowdt, and on wakeupcalldt.com. So however you're tuning in, we thank you so much for being a part of the show worldwide on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. A lot of great stuff coming up for you in today's broadcast of Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. We're going to get started inside of Ma and Pa's Popcorn.com's What's Poppin'. You can get Ma and Pa's anywhere in the country by going to Ma and Pa's Popcorn.com, and you could get some special offers if you're here in the community at 201 Old 7th North Street in Liverpool, New York. Head off to Ma and Pa's today and get your popcorn ready and get your kettle corn ready. There's some games coming up this weekend. We have the women's Final Four and championship on Friday and Sunday, and we have the men's Final Four Saturday, championship Monday. We also have the Fin Frenzy going on at Lemoyne, so a lot of great things are going to be happening around this area as well as in general around the country. So why not go over to Ma and Pa's and get the best snacks around? Ma and Pa's on 201 Old 7th North Street in Liverpool, New York. And if you buy any one of their tins, you'll have half-price refills for the rest of your life. So make sure you do that. Inside of What's Poppin', Mike Aresco is going to join me first, the American Athletic Conference Commissioner. Very happy to have Mike joining the broadcast here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. He's been a mainstay, and we're going to talk about a lot of different things. The future is bright for the American Athletic Conference, with 4 of the 6 schools coming in competing for or having won national championships. UNC Charlotte won the CBI tournament. We know that North Texas and UAB are playing tonight for the NIT championship, which means no matter who wins, the future of the American does, as both teams will be joining the American. And a big shout out to Conference USA, where they currently compete. And so Conference USA wins, the American for the future wins, whoever wins tonight in the NIT. And, of course, FAU in the Final Four for Conference USA, who will be joining the American on July 1st, 2023. If they are to continue to move forward, that's another potential champion. So the American Athletic Conference will be bringing in teams coming off of championship seasons in at least 2 of the 3 tournaments, if not all 3, depending on what FAU does. So a lot of exciting things to talk about, including the incumbent schools, coaching changes and hires, and so much more, including why I'm wearing my Wichita State shirt, as Mike Aresco and I will talk about Ted Lasso and the Wichita State football team, which does not exist anymore, and what we have to do to bring that football team back so we can bring Ted Lasso back from overseas. Then we'll get into Chris Heidel and I speaking on the NCAA Tournament. Chris coming from HerbFM Sports Radio in Baltimore, and then we'll round out the show in hour number 2, what we always do on Thursdays, with PJ Papa Joe going to be joining us to speak on opening day. Every single one of the MLB 30 franchises is in action today. 15 games all throughout the day to celebrate the opening day of Major League Baseball's season for 2023. And we'll talk about the Jaguars as well. So a lot of great stuff coming up where sports meets life. We'll take a quick step aside and come back with Mike Aresco right after this.
Carvel DeWitt, it's what happy tastes like. Do you know why? Because we make ice cream. Creamy, rich, flavorful ice cream. Not yogurt or iced milk like some of our competitors. Ice cream. Fresh, by hand, daily. For the calorie conscious, we have something new for you. Our new Carvelite. Same great flavor, creaminess, and texture of our regular ice cream with only 35 calories an ounce. So whether you want an ice cream cake, flying saucer, dasher, carvalanche, hard or soft ice cream, we will satisfy your craving with our fresh, handmade regular or new Carvelite ice cream. Carvel DeWitt. It's what happy tastes like.
Cafe Cabal offers same-day local delivery of our products, offering no delivery charge for Onondaga County. Shop cafecabal.com for fresh roasted coffee beans, cold brew, travel mugs, and all your essential Cafe Cabal needs. Cafe Cabal, coffee for the soul.
The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is located on 3680 Milton Avenue in the Home Depot Plaza. It is your family-friendly sports bar and restaurant. Folks, some sports bars aren't family-friendly. Some family-friendly restaurants are not sports bars. The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is proud to be both. It is that marriage that you've been looking for years. The Wildcat Sports Pub is your home base for your sports bar and restaurant needs, games for the kids, indoor and outdoor activities, and enough things on the menu to come back every single week and get to try something new. They're open Sundays from noon to 8 p.m., Monday through Wednesday, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m., and Thursday through Saturday from 11 a.m. to midnight. For reservations and party information, call 315-487-2222 for the Wildcat family-friendly sports pub and restaurant. Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside of the Cafe Kubal studios. We are so happy to be here with you, and of course, a very special guest who is a mainstay here on the broadcast. That's American Athletic Conference Commissioner Mike Aresco. We are here to talk about a lot of amazing pieces to the future and also the incumbent members. The American Athletic Conference is arguably going to be heading into maybe its strongest era yet. And there's a lot to be said about what's happening. We know that moves get made when football is at the forefront, but men's and women's basketball and what this can be for the future of the American is looking very bright. Just look at all of the tournaments in Division I. In the CBI for men's basketball, the Charlotte 49ers won the championship. In the NIT, we will see both North Texas and UAB fight for the rights to be 2023 NIT champions in Division I, which means that no matter who wins, the future of the American will. And FAU has advanced to their first ever Final Four, which gives an opportunity for Florida Atlantic to hoist a trophy, and if for nothing else, to be a Final Four team as they get set to come into the American. Every single tournament in men's Division I basketball will feature a future American athletic team if it hasn't already featured a champion, and there will be no less than 2 out of 3 of those tournaments with future American athletic champions. With that being said, I bring in Mike Aresco. Mike, how are you?
Great to be with you, Dan. Hope you're doing well. And it was a nice introduction. And again, it's absolutely terrific to see these teams performing so well. And they will be coming into our conference, as you know.
Yeah, so I want to do the, balance of to Judy McLeod and everything that she's done with Conference USA and the incredible pedigree of that conference, which has come into the American Athletic over the years. And now there'll be 6 schools coming in from Conference USA. So I want to congratulate Judy on Charlotte, North Texas, UAB, and FAU. And at the same time, I want to congratulate you on what the future looks like, because these schools will be joining in July of 2023, and you're going to be having at least 2 national champions of men's basketball coming into your conference, if not 3.
No question, and kudos to Judy, and I'm really excited and happy for Conference USA and what Judy's doing. They'll earn some units, and that really helps them financially, and this is a legacy for them. I sent a note to Judy, I had a lovely note back, and it's a legacy for their conference, just as Houston would have been for us. Very similar situation. And incidentally, this is shining a light, as we talked about recently, on realignment. Brett Urmark was rooting for Texas, and incidentally, and they're still in the conference, right? But they'll be leaving. And Houston will be coming in, and I'm rooting for Houston. And Houston obviously came close, but didn't quite make it. But it augurs extremely well for our conference. There's no question about it. And we won't be making any statements about it or anything like that, because we want to be respectful while they're still in Conference USA. But certainly we can talk about the future and the fact that they're coming into the conference, and that we could have 3 national champions coming in. It's possible. And even if we don't, you've got 2 and, a Final Four team at worst, and maybe one that will play in the championship game. It's remarkable. And 5 of the 6 schools coming in have had real basketball success, the Conference USA schools. The sixth, we have no doubt that UTSA will build that program, because the key to everything here, Dan, has been the investment and the commitment these schools have made and are making. And that's why they're in the conference. We looked at FAU and we looked at Charlotte, and they're a little further afield, although they're, FAU's in Florida, and we have a team in Florida, USF, obviously. And we said, in Charlotte, of course, East Carolina's in East Carolina. So it's not as though they're just not in the main area where a lot of the schools are. But we looked at them and said, they've got great ADs and they're committed and they're in great locations.
Yeah.
It really helps to be in states that are growing, where the pool of talent is greater than it's ever been. And that's why I think they're having such great success. Now, we didn't expect this, and it came as a surprise, and it's wonderful to see. But it does augur well, and very excited, happy for Judy, and happy for Conference USA.
Yeah, this is a great swan song to them leaving Conference USA and reflecting the fact that they will be champions in Conference USA. And it's also a huge plug and a push to what the American is getting and the pedigree that you're getting. I mean, these additions, when you were looking at realignment, reclassification, when, looking at a bunch of different pieces, as any commissioner is, you and I spoke about it for a long time. And we got to a point where we continued to have that conversation. And you said at a certain point, it wasn't an if, it was a when, finding the right schools that were going to make sense for you. And when you made this decision, now as the American gets prepared for its future starting July 1, 2023, these look like incredible moves because of what these teams have been doing. And that is a beautiful thing. I mean, you look at UTSA, as you talked about, their basketball program building up and hopefully ramping up. Well, their football program, they lock in their coach and they protect that because they know what UTSA is becoming. And you see what UAB has done in football now, what they're doing in basketball. And you see Rice starting to gain some momentum in football. So there's all of these pieces coming in that are great to say to Conference USA, we're going to leave you as champions. And it's at the same time, they're not stumbling and, beaten and bruised and on the ground coming into the American. They're coming into the American on wings of gold right now, is how I see it.
Oh, no question. Again, we tried to pick schools that we thought were in the right places, were committed, had the resources, had the right personnel in place. And I think we have picked the right ones. Now, remember, also, I'm very bullish on both sports, as you know, and our women's basketball will get better as well. It won't be just Jose Fernandez, a legendary coach at USF, and Lisa Stockton at Tulane. We're going to bring in some excellent coaches there, and we have some fine teams that are developing. But here's the thing, Dan. In the next week or so, once all our basketball positions are filled, between the incumbents and the newcomers, you're going to have all great coaches, all excellent coaches. And, Eric Conkle at Tulsa and Rob Lanier, they're just getting their feet wet, but they're really highly regarded coaches, and they'll bring those programs back. Ron Hunter's already done that at Tulane. Arthur Johnson will hire an outstanding coach at Temple. I think in the end, it might be a little lull because, the president is departed, President Jason Wingard, whom I had a great friendship with and did really a lot for our conference. And so we hate to see him go. But that could, at least for a little while, delay that. But I don't know. I haven't talked to Arthur. But the point is, we have a really great roster of coaches, USF has just announced Amir Abdul Rahim, and he, as you know, coached Kennesaw State, and they almost beat Xavier. They were an excellent team, and he's done a fine job. He's highly regarded, and he's been getting great kudos on that hire. So you look around, and the incumbents and the newcomers, all these great coaches, we're going to be a really strong basketball conference. Now, we will be deeper than we were, even though we will lose Houston. And just as I congratulated Judy, I mean, we're thrilled for Houston going into the Big 12. They'll do well there. No one supported us more than Kelvin and Chris Pesman and Renu Couture in Houston. They supported this conference. Tillman Fertitta did an unbelievable job with facilities and helping them as their board chair, and a big donor. And we're just thrilled. Kelvin, we hoped he would be in Houston this week. It would have been really something, huh? If potentially Houston and FAU could have met in the championship game. It was not to be. One and dones and single elimination is very hard, as you know. But the point is, we're excited for them. And I think I'm sure the Big 12 is too, having them come in. And Cincinnati and UCF will develop good programs. Cincinnati was one of our flagship programs. It slipped a bit, but they'll come back. So again, as I said earlier, realignment's all over the place, and everybody's rooting for teams they know are leaving. Is it somewhat bittersweet? Of course. But it is nice to see when you're bringing in so many great schools that are doing what they're doing, and the future is bright. And that's been the key to everything. The one thing that's not going to change in this conference is the DNA. As long as I'm here, and I don't think that it'll change even after I'm gone. Teams want to win. They want to play at the highest level. They don't want to be viewed in any way as not first class. And I think that's a key to what's happening. UTSA just announced budget increases. They're serious. They kept their coach. We hope Dusty May stays at FAU. There's every reason to think he will. He's got his team coming back. Charlotte, Mike Hill said he's got the whole team coming back that won the CBI. And granted, it's not the NCAA or the NIT, but it's they had to win it, and it's a good tournament. So very, very optimistic, and no reason not to be.
Yeah, Mike, here with the American Athletic Conference Commissioner Mike Aresco on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora here inside of the Cafe Kubal studios. I want to go to women's basketball for a second. There's a lot of things you made mention of and that we're going to get into today. Of the incumbent programs that are staying within the American Athletic Conference from this season, 7 of 8 women's basketball programs finished with a winning record. What does that mean to you?
Means a lot. And, East Carolina was picked to finish last. And under Kim McNeil, they finished first. That's a great story. And, we're bringing in programs also that are very competitive. Yeah, they've all had winning seasons. They've all competed. We'll miss Ron Huey in Houston. Ron's a wonderful person and excellent coach, and he'll be heading out. And we'll miss, obviously, Cincinnati, and we'll miss UCF. When Katie Abrahamson left, the program dipped a bit. They were our champion 2 years ago. But we're going to have excellent women's basketball because there's a commitment there. Our ADs got together several years ago and reinforced their commitment to women's basketball. And, that isn't, it's not something you take for granted because a lot of, I hear scuttlebutt, over the years, well, let's shift resources to volleyball and softball and lacrosse, women's lacrosse. Those are the growing sports. No problem with funding those and making sure they have adequate resources, but let's not shortchange women's basketball, which is still one of our major sports. And you see the incredible progress the women's game has made and what a new contract might look like down the road with ESPN or someone else. Now, obviously, we're an ESPN conference, so we always root for them. But the point is, I watched some of the Iowa game the other day, Iowa-Louisville Sunday, and Caitlin Clark is a revelation. I mean, I'd seen her and I knew she was good, but she was hitting shots from downtown, from outer space. And she's also got great court presence. She's also obviously a great young person, you could tell. And so the women's game is important, and we want to be, we had 2 teams in it. USF won a game, and then obviously played a good first half against South Carolina, as the USF president, joked to me, it's too bad the games aren't one half, sometimes, it's a tough deal, and I do remember, UConn had a great run in our conference, as you know, they never lost, but they were actually losing to USF at halftime in one of our championship games. I remember taking a photo of the scoreboard because it was just so unusual. And I did run into Jose Fernandez, the USF coach, on the way back from the locker room before the start of the second half, and he said they're really good. That's going to be tough. Mm-hmm. And sure enough, they didn't win, but they played them. They played them well, and so we're going to be fine in women's basketball also. And by the way, Carl Hicks, who was once the head of basketball at the ACC, runs men's and women's, and he's ably assisted by Erica Holmes. They really know their stuff, and I know they collaborate with our ADs and get to know the coaches. Made a big difference. We have excellent officiating in our league through a consortium with the SEC, so everything's in place. It's just a question now of making sure we realize our potential.
Yeah, and keeping with women's basketball for a second, coming in, we talked about all these schools that are doing well on the men's basketball side. Well, on the women's basketball side, one of the schools that's trying to build up on the men's side has done an incredible job on the women's side, and that's the Rice Owls for Rice University. Lindsay Edmonds and her team finished this season 23-9, and I would love to get your thoughts on Rice women's basketball as Rice gets set to come in to the American in July.
Yeah, Lindsay's done a fine job, and Rice is committed. Rice is as you know, it's a wealthy school in the sense has a big endowment. It has resources, and I think they're willing to commit those resources to be really good in all athletics. And I think in our conference there'll be more excitement in terms of just the exposure they'll get on ESPN. The donors we hope will step up.
Yeah.
And also remember, they're going to have great baseball too. Jose Cruz is a baseball coach there. Rice historically has had terrific baseball, just as Tulane has and Wichita State. So, and East Carolina is a mainstay, as you know, under Cliff Godwin. So we're hoping that baseball becomes one of our top sports. It's been really good. Houston's been very good too at times, and so is UCF. We're going to lose a couple of those programs, but the point is, Lindsay's done a fine job, and Rice had a good men's program too this year. They did a nice job. They were in the middle of the pack and played well at times. But a good part of the season actually.
Yeah. So here with Mike Aresco, the American Athletic Conference Commissioner, on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. Speaking on how the future is bright for the American Athletic Conference, we've been talking about women's basketball, shifting to men's basketball, taking a look at the coaches that make up the men's basketball side. At East Carolina, you have Mike Schwartz. At Memphis, you have Penny Hardaway. At SMU, you have Rob Lanier. At Tulane, you have Ron Hunter. Tulsa, Eric Conkle. And then at Wichita State, you have Paul Mills. And just announced, and I definitely wanted to get into this, of the incumbent schools to the American Athletic Conference, you have USF bringing in Kennesaw State's Amir Abdur-Rahim. And this is very, very new news, like the ink is still wet on the paper. So when you look at that, Mike, you look at these incumbent schools and you hear those names, you see the move that USF made to bring in Amir Abdur-Rahim. You obviously know what Ron Hunter is building and what Penny Hardaway has done, and some of these other coaches as they're evolving and growing. And Rob Lanier, you and I were talking about him, and Eric Conkle off the air. So just what it sounds like when I read off those names of incumbent schools that will continue on in the American.
Yeah, no question about it. I'm very, very bullish on basketball, as I mentioned. And it comes down to the coaches. And I know that you can have all the best facilities, you can have the pedigree, you can have the history and tradition, you can have the fan base. But if you don't have the right coach, a lot of great programs, football and basketball, have floundered when they didn't have the right coach. Even the Blue Bloods have had that happen to them. And we've got real interest in our area in basketball, in our schools where they are. And I think in the end, what you're seeing is a function of investment and of caring, of commitment. Now, the other thing that we benefit from, and I think we will over the next decade, Dan, we're always subject to some realignment. You never know, right?
Yeah.
And there's nothing you can do about that. You just have to roll with it. But we chose schools, and we have incumbent schools that are in the right places. Name two states that are growing more than Texas and Florida. And we have heavy presence in both places. And now that is now translated into basketball as well as football, because a lot of great basketball players now come from Texas and Florida. If you can keep them home, you've got a great chance to be good. And that's what, Dusty Dusty has done. And Dusty May did it at FAU. And if you can keep those players home, those states are growing. And also they care about sports. The same thing with Alabama, UAB, right? North Carolina, Charlotte and East Carolina, Oklahoma, Again, Wichita, no one has a fan base like Wichita State. No one has any better one, is my view. It's incredible. They're tremendous fans. Memphis basketball and football has really gained traction there. Basketball is, it's in the DNA of Memphis. So you're in the right places, and you've got tremendous growth possibilities. It's now up to us to make sure. I'm just excited about having coaches this good, and that speaks well of our administrators, Dan, because they hired these coaches and they're committed to winning. And the same thing with the schools coming in. When we expanded roughly a year ago, I thought we had the right schools, but you thought, okay, maybe we'll take a step backward. You're losing Houston and Cincinnati and UCF, but I don't believe so now. And I don't see any reason why we can't be just as good as we've been in football, with what we've done, and with Tulane, again, reaping the benefits of what they did. And UTSA, you mentioned UTSA, their football program's terrific, and they've got real support there. And what's a more growing area than San Antonio? And it's terrific. Also, in the end, that this will help our women's basketball. It'll help our Olympic sports. You don't know what the future is going to bring. We've been a victim of our own success, as you know. We lost some teams. And because of the way realignment works, it's always possible that, we could lose teams. But we know also there are plenty of teams that would join us in a minute. And if they did, we think that because of the DNA of our conference, because of the exposure you get, the extra money you get, the ESPN promotion and exposure, that they're all going to do better. One of the ESPN commentators, I don't know if I mentioned this to you when I last appeared, said that our conference was rocket fuel for these programs. That would have surprised a lot of people maybe 10 or 11 years ago when people kind of gave us up for dead, and we didn't have a name, a logo, a place to play our basketball tournament. We didn't have any money. We didn't have a TV deal. We were really in dire straits, but look what we've done. And now I think we are a place people want to be. These coaches wanted to be with us. They wanted to be with our schools, and these are good coaches. So we'll see what happens. We're I don't want to be Pollyanna here, but there's real reason for optimism.
Yeah. And, and that's the thing, speaking about all of these different sectors and areas, if a school is struggling in this one program, they're so good in another program that, everybody's bringing in value from where they are, the region that they're in, the fan bases that they have, the donors that they have. And at the same time, this one's coming in football is on the rise. That this team just hired a great coach for this sport, so we're going to see a transition into a new era. This women's basketball team, this men's basketball team, some schools with multiple, and like you talked about baseball and whatnot. So there's so many things to be said about, once again, banging home that drum that the future is bright for the American when it comes to incumbent as well as returning. You spoke about something just now, Mike, and I'd love to expand on this. Money, resources, exposure. Where is the American in those areas, in your opinion, when it comes to dollars and cents, exposure, and the resources that the conference has today?
Well, I think, in terms of resources and dollars, we're not at the level of some of those, other conferences, the so-called P5. And I don't think the P5 is quite what it was, as you know. And I'd like to get rid of those labels. But we have plenty in the way of resources. We have the revenue from our ESPN deal, and we have a smaller CBS deal in basketball as well, to compete. You don't need waterfalls in your locker room. You don't need some of the things that you might want to spend your money on. Yeah. And we spend our money wisely. The revenues are there. We're doing well. We'll have definitely increased revenue with the new CFP deal, without question. We'll earn more units down the road with this basketball conference that I think we're going to have. Exposure is outstanding. ESPN has kept our level of exposure the same, even with the teams departing. We're on ABC, ESPN, ESPN2, ESPNU, ESPN Plus, and everybody who wants to spend a few bucks can see us on ESPN Plus. You don't have to worry about parts of the country that don't have a particular network. So we are in great shape on exposure. And by the way, that's one of the things that the conferences, I think some of the new schools, ADs were polled recently. There was an article I saw, and they all talked about why they like coming into our conference. And part of it was the exposure. It gives them a few more dollars, obviously, and that's important. But it's the exposure. This is tremendous for them. They're brands, and we benefited enormously. That's how we built this thing, Dan. We built it because ESPN didn't have a lot of money at the beginning, and it was frustrating. But ESPN gave us incredible exposure, and they over-delivered. They would often give us 5 or 6 prime times, ABC appearances. Some were daytime, some primetime. We had 4 game days. We had game days in basketball. They've been great to us, and I think we're a valuable product for them now. We play on Thursday and Friday in football. We have a good Saturday niche, but basketball, I think we're going to provide them with tremendous value. And as you know, they do a lot of basketball, and so we're really excited about that. And that's the key. I think in all 3 areas, we're fine. And again, as I've said all along, you don't have to be the Big Ten and the SEC to succeed. And you don't have to have a contract that pays you maybe 3 or 4 or 5 times what we have. We have enough. And if you're smart, there are some wild cards, Dan. I'm not going to pretend there aren't. This transfer portal is still a wild card. I hope we benefit from it, but you never know, right? Yeah. NIL is a real wild card. I don't know what's going to happen there. Pay to play, if that ever comes about. There are a lot of things going on in college sports now that could change the landscape dramatically, and we're going to have to adapt. And I hope that we're as successful in that new world and with new protocols as we've been in the previous one. You had scholarship limits. Are those going to continue, right? You had a year in residency. You had a way to really keep the talent. If you were smart and you recruited well, now you don't have to necessarily recruit well. You just kind of take the transfer portal and pick your players. And you have to develop team chemistry when you do that. And I guess so far it's probably helped us a little more actually than it's hurt us. So we'll see what happens down the road.
That coming from Mike Aresco. In closing, Mike, a couple things here. One of them being with realignment continuing and the thought that after basketball wraps up here, there may be some movement, there may be some reclassifying schools and different things going on. How confident are you that the incumbents of the American are strong?
Oh, extremely, extremely confident. I don't think there's any doubt about it. And one of the concerns, of course, is that when you're attractive and you have good programs, you could be subject to poaching. You just don't know. It's a pretty predatory business now, let's be honest. It just is. And you also don't know where the next shoe is going to drop. You don't know where the next realignment might come from. I was on Sirius Radio yesterday with Chris Childers and Rick Neuheisel, and they've been great over the years. I've enjoyed being on, just like I enjoy being on with you. They're very knowledgeable. And they asked about that. What do you think the landscape's going to be? And what do you think realignment is going to continue? And I said, probably continue indefinitely. You never know. You think it's over and then it isn't. Now there are cycles, and maybe once things settle out with the Pac-12 and some other conferences, maybe there'll be some stability, but you don't know, right? Big Ten doesn't have a commissioner right now. When they get a new commissioner, you don't know what their plans are going to be. You don't know what the SEC is doing. You don't know what the ACC schools are doing. So there's a lot of uncertainty. And I said the way to handle that is to just be sanguine about it, not to worry about it. I don't lose any sleep over it. People say, well, how can that be? You must be worried all the time about this. No, I'm not. If it happens, it happens. You deal with it. We've dealt with it a lot. We've survived and thrived. And by the way, if you don't take it personally, it really helps also. And we haven't taken it personally. We think the world of the Houston people, the UCF people, Cincinnati, what they did for the conference. We wish them well. The new people coming in, we have a good relationship. Judy and I are still friends. And you have to be, because this is just the nature of college sports. Look, we went through a period when there were a lot of hostile takeovers in business, right?
Yeah.
And we just didn't know, right? And yet shareholders would have to want to make that change, right? Because they were getting paid more money. Well, some conferences will look for greener pastures. It's often about money. It's often about prestige. It's often about who you're playing with, whom you're playing with. That's just fact of life. So you get used to it and you move on. And but you've got a very strong conference here, which I think is stable enough that it thrives into the future, regardless of what happens. And anybody in this conference will find that they benefit from it one way or another. Mike Slive always said, and I may have quoted him when we talked last, the best conference is the one you're in, and just support that conference, commit to that conference. If you go somewhere else, we'll throw you a party. But the point is, the key is to support the conference you're in. And I think that's what's happened with us, because we're kind of in the middle. We've been subject to that, that realignment cycle.
Yeah, I think the reality is coaches have always been in the transfer portal. Now schools are in the transfer portle. Student athletes are in the transfer portal. So, I mean, that has all.
That's a good. It's a great statement. You're absolutely right. I mean, you're absolutely right. Coaches, student athletes now, and teams have all been in the transfer for a good point. It's a good line. Maybe I'll use it, but I'll credit you if I do.
Yeah, and make sure you credit me when you're on serious. But yeah, so very nice. In these final moments. One of them more of a joking fashion. The other one is kind of a full circle. Says a lot about the conference in this decade, the first decade of the conference, that Tom Herman built up Houston, did fantastic work with him, moved on to Texas, and now he's at FAU. So, basically how I see it is if you work hard enough, long enough, you see these, you see things like come back around for you. And Tom Herman's a great example of that.
Yeah, and we're thrilled that he wanted to come to our conference, that he wanted to go to FAU, and he loves it there. We read an article that said he's thriving there. He's really happy. He's got good players. He's got players with a chip on their shoulder, and they're good players. He likes living there. It's a great spot to be for his family. So I'm thrilled to have him back. And he's very personable. He's very, very charismatic, and he did a great job at Houston. He'll do it. And, he did a good job at Texas. We're talking about a program that wants to go undefeated every year, and they have high expectations, but
yeah.
I don't know how realistic they are anymore. But the point is, Tom will be a great addition. And again, it speaks well. Brian White is a really strong AD. He has a great pedigree. Kevin White's his father, Danny White's his brother, Mike White, the coach, also another brother. His sister Mariah, I think, works. I know she works at SMU, and she's an up and coming executive. And Kevin and Jane White have a wonderful family, as you know. But he's just a really good, strong AD. Look whom he's hired. And the same thing with Mike Hill. Mike Hill worked for Jeremy Foley. Jeremy Foley's the best. I mean, you don't get any better AD over the years than Jeremy Foley. And Mike Hill, learned from Jeremy. And Mike has made an interesting football hire, the kind of hire that a school like Charlotte should make. And he's got a basketball team now that won the CBI. It's got everybody coming back. You look at Mark Ingram at UAB. Ren Baker was at North Texas, and he now is moved on to West Virginia. But you've got really good people. Really all over the place. I mean, we've got some great people everywhere, and we've talked a lot about coaches today, Dan.
Yeah.
But, ADs are often, the key to everything, and they have to have the support of their administration. They have to have the support of their presidents. And if they don't, then you're not going to get anywhere. And I think we've had that support. And, I hope it continues. I think it will. Good group of presidents, the boards of our schools care. You got to care. You have to want to win. And you have to want to do it right too, because if you don't do it right, it wrecks everything. And I think that's a knock on wood, but our schools have really tried to do it right, and I think they've done that. And I think their student athletes have enjoyed being at the places they're at. So
And I mean, the last thing, keeping with leadership and coaching, is what do we have to do in the American Athletic Conference to get Wichita State to create a football team so that Ted Lasso can come back from overseas?
Well, they had an interesting. Bill Parcells was there, right, at Wichita State, and there's still some football memorabilia in the field house when you go there.
Yeah,
and they did play football for a long time. I said when I went over to see them the first time, their football stadium was, it wasn't used for. Well, I guess they do have some football there, but they had other events there. It was nicer than some of our stadiums, even though they weren't playing football anymore.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know whether they'll ever resurrect that program or not, but they were real happy to come in basketball, and we love having them. They're a great program, great fan base, terrific fan base, and it's been all been good.
Well, I think it's it's a shameless plug for the conference when Ted Lasso starts off with him being a coach at Wichita State, and that dance that he had was probably one of the best dances we've seen from a coach. So with that being said, Mike Aresco, the American Athletic Conference Commissioner, here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. the future is absolutely positively shining bright for this American Athletic Conference. Thank you, Mike, for your time as always.
Well, thanks for having me, Dan. Really appreciate it. And again, enjoy the games this weekend. Should be a lot of fun. Thank you again. Always a pleasure to be with you. Thanks.
Appreciate it. That coming once again from Mike Aresco, the commissioner of the American Athletic Conference. And we jump right into our next piece here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. And a busy morning as we get set for the NIT, which will be North Texas going up against UAB, two Conference USA schools and future American Athletic Conference schools. So a lot of great stuff coming up. And getting to talk about Ted Lasso on Wake Up Call in the morning is a perfect day every day. That's why I'm wearing my Wichita State Shockers shirt. So with that being said, let's bring in our second guest of the day inside of MonPazPopcorn.com's What's Poppin'. Chris Heidel joining me here inside of the Cafe Kubal studios to talk about the NCAA Tournament from HerbFM Sports Radio in Baltimore, Maryland. Chris, how are you?
Good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm doing well, man. I'm doing well. Like I said, talking about Ted Lasso in the morning, there's nothing wrong with that. So having a good time with the commissioner, trying to get that Wichita State football team back so we can bring back Ted Lasso from overseas. But good to have you here. Good to be with you here this morning. And we know that we're going to have a lot of great things coming up here. Friday, we'll have the Final Four for the women's side, Saturday for the men, and then we'll have the women's championship on Sunday, the men's on Monday. So this tournament for you has meant blank. How would you describe this tournament, this field, and the road that we've been on to the Final Four?
I think for the men's side, it's been wacky because you've seen the change of, style of play. You see change of teams because every year you go to the NCAA tournament and you think, okay, Duke's going to be there, North Carolina's going to be there. Okay, maybe a Big Ten school will be there. Yeah, but this year it's like conferences who you never thought in your imagine. Except for ACC, we know the ACC always brings somebody there, but you always think to yourself like, do you ever think a Conference USA team is going to be there? A future, American Athletic Conference team, a team from the Mountain West. You're thinking to yourself, when's the last time somebody from the mountain, from out in the West Coast went to the Final Four? Yeah, it's this whole men's side is like weird. And if you, like I said, and my brother and I were talking the other day, if you picked Florida Atlantic, San Diego State, UConn, and Miami, you might be sitting pretty right now because your bracket is like the greatest thing in the world, and you might be bringing home some money, pretty much. Yeah. So it's crazy.
Yeah, no, it's been an interesting field for sure. And then on the women's side of it, I know we talked about it earlier in the week on your show on Tuesday night, but with the men's side, if you would describe it as wacky, how would you describe the women's Final Four?
Well, the women's Final Four, you got your favorite in South Carolina, but the other three teams, Iowa, who played Maryland really hard, and the women's team in the Big Ten, and I thought it was going to be Maryland and Iowa representing the Big Ten. And then you got Kenny Brooks, who I followed since he was in the CAA, and I got to give a shout out to the Columbia Athletic Conference because of the commissioner, Tonio, who is the commissioner there in the CAA. You should be happy that you have an alumni of that great conference in the Final Four for the women's side because Kenny Brooks worked really hard at JMU. He's a alumni of JMU. He played men's basketball at JMU with Lefty Gasell. He took over the women's team. He was really dominant at the women's team at JMU, but he didn't get far. He had problems because when he won the CAA, you win your first conference, you win your first playoff game in these NCAA tournament, but you play, and then they put him up against Texas, the number one seed or somebody and they lose. So, but this year he found these girls who I talked to them on Monday, and you probably heard the interview on my show. I asked him, when did you know you had a special squad? Because you're a coach, when you had a special squad, your squad is special. You know where the turning point is. And he goes, last summer when we're all sitting at, practicing every day in the summer. And all the girls were back at the college working at it. And I knew that we had a special team because they wanted to get here, and they did.
Yeah, and it's setting up to be an awesome. I mean, really, when we look at it, the CBI is all finished up, but here we are with the opportunity tonight to see a fantastic game between North Texas and UAB for the NIT for the men's championship, which I'm very much looking forward to. I think it's great. And the beautiful part of this is the fact that, in this NIT championship game that we have with North Texas and UAB, these are two teams, once again, when I talk about seeding and I talk about teams getting in and at-large bids and whatnot, these teams are both disrespected, both left out. Conference USA right behind FAU. Keep in mind, UAB has beaten FAU this season, who's now in the Final Four. And, they don't even get a look, in my opinion, or if they did, it wasn't a good one. And here they are at the end of it all, and here's North Texas at the end of it all. When you look at UAB and say, okay, they had to beat Southern Miss from the Sun Belt, then they had to go beat Morehead State, then they beat Vanderbilt, who I thought was a team deserving of getting into the tournament. They beat Vanderbilt in order to advance to the last four of the NIT, and then they beat Utah Valley. On North Texas's side, North Texas had to come through this thing. They beat Elkhorn, then they beat Sam Houston, who's a strong team that a lot of people don't know about but need to get to know about, and then they go and beat the Big 12's Oklahoma State, and then they beat Wisconsin of the Big 10. So it's not like UAB and North Texas are beating these slouches, but again, this is another conference in Conference USA that is showing the committee, maybe instead of giving almost 10 spots to the Big 10, you give 2 to another conference and let them go. Because with North Texas and UAB running through this whole thing, they're really showing you that not only was FAU good, but Conference USA wasn't that bad this year. And I feel that this is what needs to happen in the NIT. This is how things need to go. You need to have those teams that aren't respected from the conferences that aren't respected going and winning those championships, just like Penny Hardaway did for the American a couple of years ago in Memphis, that these moments have to happen because they have to be a representation of the unfairness of the fact that really only 6 conferences are making up for those at-large bids.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I feel like, I was just reading last night about George Mason back in 2006 because, Coach L is now back in the Final Four with Miami, and the CAA had George Mason was an at-large bid from the CAA, and that's like unheard of. And I'm thinking to myself, why can't these conferences get an at-large bid? So what if, if you're not a Duke or Maryland or whatever, if you have 31 wins, like we almost had that situation with College of Charleston this year in the CAA. If Charleston did not beat North Carolina Wilmington in the championship game, Charleston probably would have been in the tournament, and they had 31. They had 32 wins. They were ranked at one point during the season, 23rd or 22 in the country. I don't know about their RPI and all that stuff, but it's like, just give them an at-large bid. Big deal. If they earned it, they got 32 wins. They worked in their schedule, and I looked at their schedule. Yes, they played a North Carolina Tar Heel team that back in the first 2 games of the year, they were ranked number 1 in the country. Okay, we know what happened to North Carolina. They're not even in the tournament. Yeah. So, okay. But, the rest of their schedule, they didn't lose. Dan, they didn't lose until December 30th, before the new year, before they flipped the calendar over to 2023. That's a lot of wins in a row, and I think that's really good for a program. And I feel like these schools and these committee members from the NCAA and the committee members for the tournament need to look at that. Okay. We have a team like UBA, who's in the NIT final. If they won 15 in a row, okay, let them be in the tournament. But they want to keep the good old boys in there because those are the ones that bring people to TV, bring some money, and like Kentucky. Kentucky was struggling this year, and they got in. And their media people are so more. They bring more media members to Greensboro when, because I couldn't even get a pass for Greensboro because I was talking to Andy from the ACC, a couple of weeks ago on the phone. He goes, yeah, if Kentucky gets there, you can forget it because they bring so many people from Kentucky's media. It's like, why do you need everybody? Is there so many members of Kentucky's media for basketball? Like, come on now, people, But that's what they needed. That's what they do.
And we look at this NCAA tournament, speaking with Chris Heidel from HerbFM Sports Radio in Baltimore, Maryland, and as we discussed that, I broke down the numbers and have brought them up before that if you look at the quote-unquote Power Five, that I can't stand that moniker, but if you look at the SEC, the ACC, the Big 12, the Big 10, and the Pac-12, and then you add in the Big East when it comes to basketball, there's 36 at-large spots. For argument's sake, 22 to 26 of those can be taken up from just those 6 conferences. There's 32 conferences. So if you take up 26 of 36 at-large bids just in 6 conferences, that means that 26 conferences are fighting for 10 spots. And for those of you that like to do the math and play the fun game, that means not everybody's getting in from those conferences. I mean, you have 26 conferences, you got 10 spots. That means not even half of them are going to be represented one other time. So that, to me, I mean, listen, the West Coast Conference, because St. Mary's can play Gonzaga tough, they get 2 now, but Gonzaga wasn't getting in before. St. Mary's wasn't getting in before. Now St. Mary's and Gonzaga get in because Gonzaga is typically the champion, and St. Mary's is right there with them. The Mountain West, they've been getting more teams, and I was a little surprised this year that they gave them 4, but I was happy that they gave them 4 in the sense that it wasn't coming from the 6 typical conferences, and at the same time, there's a level of the ACC disrespect, and I played it on the show yesterday in my conversations with all 4 coaches that are heading into the Final Four. Jim Larinaga and I had a Q&A about ACC disrespect, and Chris, I'd love to get your thoughts on it. You and I cover the ACC very closely. 15 schools. Typically, they're the ones that are getting 7 or 8 teams in, 6 teams in at worst. In the last 2 years, I would love to get your thoughts on what you think is going on and why it's going on that the ACC from October, November, all the way through the season has garnered some form of disrespect from the committee and nationally with the media and the coaches polls to the point where the ACC starts off so low in October, November in a lot of cases, or in this case this year, preseason number 1, North Carolina, they don't turn out to be the team that the media and the coaches thought they were going to be, and it's almost like the entire ACC got punished for it. Why do you think the ACC has been getting less spots, less representation, not great seeding? What's going on with ACC disrespect?
Well, I feel like the ACC is still trying for men's basketball, but I was talking to my buddy Matt, who helps me on the show, a couple of weeks ago. We were talking about the ACC, and I'm like, dude, is there anybody in the ACC, any coaches in the ACC that we know? And he goes, well, you got Jim Boeheim, but now he retired. I'm like, okay. Who else is in there? And he goes, well, we got Hamilton. I'm like, yeah. And you got Coach L. They used to have Coach K. They used to have Roy Williams. They used to have, they still have Tony Bennett, but Tony Bennett's like, okay. Yeah, he's an okay coach. He's like, if you're in the, Charlottesville area, he's like, the man. And then, they're thinking of, okay, and then Josh Pastner got fired. Now you got a new coach at Georgia Tech who is a player that you grew up watching in the NBA. So that's going to be very interesting to see, Stoudemire taking over a Georgia Tech team, and see how he does as a coach. And I'm thinking like, well, the ACC always had great teams, great players. I guess we don't have a lot of star power in the ACC, and I guess a lot of the media people are like, who? Like my brother was telling me the other day, Florida State only had 8 wins this year. He goes, what happened there? I'm like, well, you had people transfer, you had people going to school, went to the NFL, to the draft or the NBA, and then you have the transfer portal and all that stuff. So back in 2020, I heard a story that the other day, if we did not have the pandemic, Florida State would have been where Miami is today in the Final Four, because they put all their eggs in the basket and say, let's go with all the, and they had good players. And I guess with the pandemic and everybody graduated and all that stuff, now Florida State's rebuilding. And Miami is basically keeping the same thing that they're doing right now.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the transfer portal and COVID and all this stuff have affected so many teams. And you go back to the COVID year when, Syracuse, North Carolina was the last game of the tournament. Syracuse had won. They were supposed to advance. It was the last game of the night. Who knows what that would have been for Syracuse? And on the national scale, Florida State was going to be a number one seed in the NCAA tournament. Dayton was going to be the number one overall seed in the NCAA tournament. And I argue that no school was affected by COVID more when it comes to seeding in the tournament than Dayton, because when was the last time that Dayton was a one seed? Dayton doesn't typically make it every single year. They didn't make it this year. So I said Dayton may never be a one seed again, and they were going to be the number one overall seed. So COVID, transfer portal, NIL, all this stuff has been consistently affecting teams. I mean, we know Syracuse, Samir Torrance gone, Joe Girard III gone, John Boljack, who is a backup forward, he's gone, and J.J. Starling's coming in from Notre Dame. So the moves have already happened, and the season's not even over for college basketball. So it's definitely going to continue to make things wacky until there's some rules and plans set in place that are going to help nationally. And you can't have a business run without a rule book. And if you don't have a rule book, well, then you write the rules as you go. And if you write the rules as you go, but you only write them for certain teams, the book doesn't mean anything. So, how is college basketball in the background looking for you, Chris, when we look at, the Final Four, awesome things going on in the background, NIL, transfer portal, confusion, each state wants to do their own thing, each school wants to do their own thing, some have the collectives, some don't, some publicly put things out there, and Jim Larinaga said, people talk about us at Miami because of, and I'm paraphrasing, but he said, people talk about us at Miami for what we're doing with NIL, but you only know what we're doing because we're transparent. We put it out there. We want you to know because we believe in transparency. We think everybody should tell the country what they're doing. Every school should report what their NIL deals are and what's going on. So he kind of was like, hey, we're being victimized for the fact that you're saying, like, look at everything they're doing at Miami, but we're not breaking any rules. We're just telling you what we're doing where other people aren't telling you. And if they're not telling you, why are they not telling you? So, I mean, what is your take on the fact that, we're seeing the NCAA tournament, but in the background of college basketball, there are so many new things going on over these last 2 years that, as you've alluded to, have affected things.
Well, like I said, the transfer portal is one of them because there's no restrictions. Like, we see it a lot in college football. Somebody last year accused Mike Novell of tampering with somebody. And then he goes, what? He goes, I didn't do anything like that. There's no rules. There's no, you can't, can you go talk to a player during the season and say, hey, if you want to come to Miami, I'll give you such and such for next year. Because they're going to say, hey, that's tampering, or that's collusion, or that's whatever. To me, it's like, they need to set guidelines because now everything is changing. Like my brother Will said to me the other day, I keep using him because him and I were talking about basketball. Nobody's going to bring anybody in from recruiting anymore. It's going to be all, transferred people. You're going to get this person from this state, this person from that state, just to come for 1 year or 2 years. You're playing in university, get paid for his name, the name thing. Gets his own money on the table, so he gets paid. And basketball's going to be totally different in college. And then we're going to see the same thing in college football. It's going to be the same thing. So college sports is changing. It's not like back in the old days when you had a coach go to your school, you signed with him, and you're there for 4 years. Now it's like you sign with Kentucky, you can leave in a year and go to Florida, or you can come back home to Maryland and play at Towson University or something like that. It's like, and you still get, and the coaches ask about, what kind of pay you want to get. Money. It's like, what? I know these kids are poor when they get to college, but that's what college is supposed to be. They have to work their tail off to become rich, but now they need to pay. People need to pay them to survive.
Yeah, it's it's definitely changed things up. It's made things interesting, and hopefully we can get some rules in place to make things better. Chris Heidel, HerbFM Sports Radio, Baltimore, Maryland. Before I let you go, give me your Final Four and your champions. I know you asked me on your show, and I want to return that favor. Who is going all the way on the women's side, and who's going to do it for the men?
Well, I feel like it's going to be, I know in the women's side, it's probably going to be South Carolina taking on. I really want to see Kenny Brooks beat LSU. Just so Kenny Brooks gets an opportunity to play in a Final Four championship game, because that man deserves it. He's been the face of basketball down in 81, down in the Shenandoah Valley, and I was reading a story yesterday. He was really upset that Virginia never called him. He wanted the Virginia job. He didn't want Virginia Tech, but the Virginia Tech job opened up because the AD at Virginia Tech is an old JMU guy. So, when you got an old JMU guy who's now the AD of Virginia Tech, come bring some of your guys from Harrisonburg. So I want to see him, take on South Carolina. Is he going to win? Probably not, because South Carolina is a bigger school. They have bigger players. They have tall, very sized ladies who are in the middle. And I think that's what women's basketball is changing. They need to get more big. They got to get big. A lot of these teams need to get bigger now. I was saying get the Will Chamberlain chick, who is 6'7" or 6'8", who could, slam the basketball. But I feel like South Carolina is changing what women's basketball is. It's more, looks like it's more like the men's game. With big people, but they still play the fundamentals. On the men's side, I know I was kidding around with everybody on the show the other night. I picked Miami to win on Saturday to go to the Final Two on Monday, and I'm pretty sure maybe I think San Diego State should win. So it'll be San Diego State versus Miami, because it's the Rock Johnson Bowl. That's what I call it. The Final Two, because the last time any Miami team played San Diego State, football, basketball, whatever. I think the only thing I remember was football, because the Rock Johnson started a fight with the mascot at San Diego State during the game. And it's on ESPN. So back when Miami football was a wacky, a tough team to play against all the time, because they wanted to start fights. So that's why I think it's going to end. And for us, we have Anthony Walker, who is from Perry Hall, Maryland, who's on Miami. But get Miami an opportunity to win a title in basketball. So they have they have one in baseball, one in basketball, and one in football. And maybe the basketball team could help bring the football team back to where it was before, and maybe this could help them out.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I have an all Florida Bowl here at the end of it. I call it the Florida Bowl, but it's obviously the championship game for the NCAA tournament. I have FAU going up against Miami for this championship game. It's going to be awesome. By the way, FAU has been doing a great job. Whoever is working in their department of promotional material and apparel and whatnot has been great. They have In Dusty We Trusty shirts that are out right now, and then we have a lot of things that have to do with the owl and whatnot. So there's some good shirts that are out there, folks. Get yours as soon as you can, and get it over to the house before the games come on. But with that being said, Chris Heidel, HerbFM Sports Radio in Baltimore, Maryland. Chris, as always, thank you for your time. Thanks for jumping on the show for a few minutes. I appreciate you having me on throughout the year and these last few weeks, having some consistency where we've had some fun over on your show on Tuesday nights. So in closing, kind of let everybody know how they can connect with you and get in touch with you weekly.
Well, you can go on, folks. You can go on YouTube. We're on YouTube. We do our show live on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. So if you want to go to, if you want to watch our old, if you want to watch Dan, when we did on this past Tuesday, go to on YouTube, type in HerbFM Sports, and it'll pop up, and it'll be different videos we have out there, and then you'll see the show we did on Tuesday. And then we have a website we're working. We're going to update that. It's still it's HerbFM Sports .weebly.com, sportsradio.weebly.com. So we're still working on getting that updated. But it's still we're having a good time, and I'm also excited today is opening day. So, hopefully hopefully Mad Max could tell the Miami Marlins to put it go to sleep today, sir. So we could beat them.
Yeah. Some good stuff.
The Mets have the best opening day record ever since they started in their existence. So let's keep that rolling.
Yeah, definitely excited about opening day. We're going to talk about it with Papa Joe right after this on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. Chris, as always, I appreciate you, man, and I look forward to talking with you soon.
I do. Talk to you next Tuesday.
All right, take care.
Bye.
See ya. That coming from Chris Heidel. We'll take a quick step aside. It's opening day and it's hour 2, which means it's Papa Joe time. We'll take a step aside for a fast break here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. I just wanted to see how many times I could say we'll take a step aside. I think I said it 4 times now. So we will jump into this fast break. I didn't say it there. And we'll be back right after this inside of the Cafe Kubal Studios. Papa Joe coming up after this. Thanks to Chris Heidel and Mike Aresco for hour number 1. Hour 2 on Wake Up Call right after this wonderful group of messages from the fantastic people in Central and Upstate New York. In these unique times, there are those in our community that give us a sense of normalcy and positivity. Pizza Man on 50 Oswego Street in Baldwinsville has been here for you for over 35 years and is here now. Call 315-638-1234 or order online at pizzamanbville.com to bring those familiar tastes into your home. And remember to come see our monthly on-site broadcasts centered around the community and our Baldwinsville Bees. Pizza Man in Baldwinsville. Any way you slice it, they are always here for you.
This is Jimmer Sikowski, owner-operator of Chick-fil-A Cicero, 7916 Brewerton Road in Cicero, right in front of the Home Depot. I had a deep feeling that God wanted me to do something bigger with my life and to help people, help others. I kept putting Chick-fil-A in my life, and I realized as I was going through the franchise selection process that positively impacting the lives of others was really core to what we do here at Chick-fil-A. First of all, it starts with the food. The food is brought in fresh daily. We bring in local produce. We prepare to order in the kitchen. We hand bread our chicken. We hand spin our milkshakes. It's great food. It doesn't taste like fast food. I think the second thing is the way people feel when they come in a Chick-fil-A restaurant. It's different. We try to treat people with intentional kindness here, which is very different and deeper than good customer service. And so I think it feels remarkable for most people to come in a Chick-fil-A restaurant. And then lastly, the impact that we try to have in the community is very different. It's a big part of the expectation of every operator of a Chick-fil-A restaurant is that they're actively engaged in their community, they're a leader in the community, and they're making a difference. When they realize that what we're striving to do is to shine a little light in their life, that's a very, very different experience than you will have in any other quick service restaurant. And it's that remarkable experience that I think people will emotionally connect with.
I'm George Townsend of Honda City with some good advice when buying a new car. The true cost of owning a new car is determined by the appraised value when you trade it. No vehicle appraises higher than a Honda. Next, look for low APRs and deep discounts. You also want low maintenance costs and great fuel economy. That's why my advice to you is to buy a new Honda. Looking pre-owned, visit our Honda Certified Used Car Center. Honda City, 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard, Liverpool, or HondaCity-CNY.com.
It would be a pity if you don't shop at Honda City.
Our corporate purpose at Chick-fil-A is to glorify God by being faithful stewards of all that's entrusted to us and to positively influence all those who come in contact with Chick-fil-A. And what became increasingly clear from our success in Cicero is that people love Chick-fil-A. And also I think we recognized that, we had a great opportunity to grow the brand and grow our platform. I felt incredibly grateful when I was selected to be a Chick-fil-A operator. I think what it's meant for me, what I've come to realize on a very deep level is that this is a calling for me. It's not a career. It's not a job. The Lord called me to be a Chick-fil-A operator and to use these restaurants to glorify Him and to positively influence other people. I'm blessed. I'm very blessed.
Head to Chick-fil-A Clay on 3974 State Route 31 in Liverpool, New York. Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside of the Cafe Kubal Studios, hanging out with you where sports meets that thing called life. Proud to be here with you every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, which you are finding worldwide on Facebook.com and YouTube.com, both /WakeUpCallDT, Facebook.com /LiveNowDT, and now on WakeUpCallDT.podbean.com. Inside of these Cafe Kubal studios, happy to be here with you. Fill your cup up right at Cafe Kubal today. And inside of MonPazPopcorn.com's What's Poppin', giving you the list of topics for the day. Mike Aresco joining us in hour number 1, the commissioner of the American Athletic Conference, speaking on how the future is bright with the incumbent schools and the incoming schools all performing incredibly here in America, getting set to join the American or return to the American. Chris Heidel joining me to speak on the NCAA Tournament, NIL, transfer portal, and more. And now we have PJ on opening mother freaking day of baseball. We have opening day of baseball happening here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. I told PJ off the air, God works in pretty amazing ways. When baseball shut down, PJ and I were on the show, and things were either happening or not happening while we were discussing it. Then when baseball came back, they chose to come back the day of our broadcast. And a year later, when baseball comes back, it's the day of our broadcast. Some people might have a faith. They might believe in God. Some people don't. Well, I choose to, and I do, and I know that the God I believe in said, not only am I going to let you guys talk about baseball today, not only is that going to happen, but it's going to happen on opening day. How many times when people say there's coincidences, I call them God incidences. So I do what I love, and I love what I do, and I thank God for that every day. But to say to Papa Joe that we're not talking about opening day the week of opening day, we're talking about opening day on opening day. So Papa Joe here with us, hour 2. Welcome, PJ, to baseball in 2023.
Play ball, bro. Play ball. I'm ready to go.
And I know that you got the MLB ticket. I know Miss Mary's got you set up and ready. So, do you have your picture in picture ready to go?
I don't really do that too much. I have the ability to play 8 games on one screen, then of course go to one that I'm following. So it gets a little hairy when you got 8 games at once.
Yeah.
And you're trying to watch one, and then something happens in another game. Then you got to go to the bottom right-hand corner and find another game. It gets crazy. So I've been just sort of loving it. Just one game at a time is fine for me.
And so we look at the schedule for today. A lot of great games coming up. I shared it on social media. Every single team is going to be playing in this opening day. There will not be a single team off. There are 15 games and 30 teams in action today, which I am ecstatic about and so happy for that we're going to see here on Thursday, March 30th of 2023. Every team in action here on the docket. The games are going to start at 1:05 p.m. Eastern Time with Atlanta at Washington and San Francisco at the New York Yankees. The games will end at 10. Well, the games will end probably at 1 o'clock in the morning, but they'll start at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. Arizona, my Diamondbacks taking on the Los Angeles Dodgers, and the Cleveland Guardians taking on the Seattle Mariners also at that time. So, PJ, we have games that start at 1 o'clock in the afternoon and end at 1 o'clock in the morning. Your thoughts on a full day of baseball?
I'm excited. I've been following things this spring. Of course, I'm going to watch the Yankees start out. That'd be 1 o'clock game. That's going to be beautiful, Yankee Stadium.
Yeah.
But Daniel, there's something else that's a little bit more important than that. And as soon as I can pull it up, because I want to talk intelligently about it with baseball.
Yeah.
They have arrived at a minor league schedule. A minor leaguer and major leaguers now have come up with a tentative deal with the CBA for the minor leaguers. And, I've been bitching for a couple of years about why they've just ignored the minor leaguers, because they don't make enough money to live. I mean, you got 5 or 6 guys in 1-bedroom apartment, and they're scrambling around eating pizza and junk food, and it wasn't healthy. So they've really come up with a good settlement, especially with more pay. It's a lot to read, but it's something so our fans to look at and read themselves, especially with pay. For instance, if you're a AAA, you go from $17.5 to $35.8. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah.
Got AA, you go from $13.8 to $30,250. High A, you get $11,000 to $27.3, and single A, $11,000 to $26.2. So those are significant increases, and it bodes well that Major League Baseball has finally come up with a solution to help these kids. Maybe 1% of kids are going to wind up playing baseball, but 10% of the guys want to play anyway, so they're in minor leagues, and sometimes you get lucky and sometimes you don't. But at least they got a shot to make a decent living, not a good living, but a decent living. There's all sorts of benefits about it, and it's a good article to read, and it's something that I'm very in favor for it.
Yeah, and we've talked about it, like you said, for a long time, that, AAA baseball needs to be, these players, they need to be treated correctly, treated fairly. You look at the major leagues, and when it comes to that, I mean, Major League Baseball, yeah, there's those giant balloon contracts that we speak about all the time, but at the same time, when you look at single A, triple A, double A baseball, we're looking at a lot of guys that are never going to, they never end up making it in the majors, or they make it, but then they get sent right back down. So sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. And for a lot of these players, for the contracts that we see that are so high, there's a bunch of players that are living in dingy apartments with cockroaches and bad neighborhoods and not making enough money and having to get another job or two just to continue to play the sport that they love. I know people that retired at 30, 31 years old, not because they don't love the game, but because they have a wife, they have a child, and they had pressure from their family to essentially stop, do something else. And I remember being around that family and them saying, oh, well, he knows it's time and he's okay with it and he's happy. I was like, no, you're happy. I mean, the guy wanted to keep playing baseball, and fiscally it wasn't working out. So, the world of all of these leagues and single A, double A, triple A, and these ancillary leagues that are going on throughout the country, you play for the love of the game. And a lot of these guys barely make enough money to cover their bills, which is not fair at all. So whatever can be done for the baseball world to make sure that people are compensated so that they can stay in the game, so that I don't have to see a friend have to leave the sport that they love to pretend to go to a job that they don't like and tell everybody that they really do like it. To me, it's sad, and I don't want to see that happen. I like when people chase their dreams and get to catch them. And if there's a better way for these players to get by, instead of just, the small percentage that make it to the majors, if everybody else can at least play the sport, stay in it, and make enough money to keep rocking and rolling, that would be a good thing. So any help is help, in my opinion.
Oh, sure. And you've also heard me bitch about the amount of players we have in this country. I don't, I don't mind that the Latin players can come over here and play ball, but I do mind that we don't look through our whole system to find baseball players that can either supplant them or be just as good. You go to any college campus, and there's 9 guys that can play baseball, period. Some of them are ranked high, some teams are not, but the fact is that all of these guys can play baseball. And you can't tell me that there's not enough players to fill in minor league systems to go into our major leagues and keep it here national. You can't tell me that doesn't happen. I mean, they're out there. They just got to go. Joe and I were at a ball game last year at Flagler, and we saw a guy come in, just a regular-looking guy, and he had a little computer and everything, and he sat behind us, actually. And I turn around and look at him. He's got a big old rock on his hand. I'm saying, which team is that? He says, the Cubs. He was a scout for the Cubs, and he was watching one of the players pitch. And we talked about that for a while, and he said that's all he does. He travels the country and finds players for the Cubs. The ring was huge. It was fun to look at. But, if these kids deserve a chance to play, they deserve a chance to play in college. They certainly deserve a chance to play in the minor leagues. That's all I ask. Give our kids a shot first before they bring in 16-year-olds from the Dominican. I don't like that.
Well, and the thing is, I'm all about finding talent wherever you can find talent. I get your point of making sure that, you take care of home and you don't have, the people that are working their tails off not get an opportunity here. But, I think wherever your talent's going to be in or out of this country, because to some people coming from another country, this is their way out. This is their way to a better life. This is their way to more positive things. So I see it from that perspective. And I also see it from the perspective of, there's a lot of good ball players here. I mean, I say the same thing about the NBA draft. I think there should be an NBA draft, and I think there should be an NBA international draft. Because in the NBA draft, there's only 60 spots, and arguably the thousands. Division I, Division II, Division III, JUCO, G League. When you put all that together, you have thousands upon thousands upon thousands of basketball players trying to get 60 spots, with only 30 of them being like guaranteed money. So when the 7th overall pick is from Serbia, and the 3rd overall pick is from France, and the 10th overall pick is from Spain, and the 15th overall pick is from Bulgaria, now you're taking that tiny percentage that like 3,000 guys are fighting for to get into the NBA, and you're making it even smaller. And so, I've always been a proponent of the NBA having a supplemental draft that's an international draft with, their draft in and of itself, because so many spots have been taken up, which is a tough thing to say. So let's take a look at this here. Greg said, taking Shohei Ohtani as the AL MVP or the field. Baseball is becoming more and more of a global sport. So are we taking Shohei Ohtani as the MVP this in the preseason, already calling him the MVP, or are we going to say it'll be somebody else?
Well, that's a tough one. That's a tough one to answer. Certainly we've talked about this before. He's a generational talent, and the only problem I have with Ohtani and his crew, as I had with Ishiro, is the guys don't learn English. And why in the hell do you want to come halfway across the world and play for a system that you don't know, and then can't speak the language? I mean, well, if I got a $50 million signing bonus, I'd sure as hell hire myself an English teacher so I could speak it. So, international is fine, I guess. I don't know. I want to see the best players play, and I want to see the best teams win. So, in saying that, there's all sorts of deals coming through. There's all sorts of different players in different levels that need to be seen. And all I want our kids is to have a good shot at doing that. That's all.
Yeah, no, and I understand. Like I said, I see it both ways. I see it as somebody coming from another country to get out of a bad situation, build a life for themselves that they can't build in the country they're in. And then I see people within this country, friends that I have, that are never going to get an opportunity because of the influx of, arguably, so many players coming in. So it's that healthy balance of trying to find the best talent that you can find, and, making sure that you take care of homegrown. There's always people that are overlooked, and that's the unfortunate part of any sport, in my opinion. So as we get started for this, PJ, like you said, you're looking forward to seeing the Yankees go on here. The matchups are as follows: Atlanta at Washington, San Francisco at the New York Yankees, Baltimore at Boston, Milwaukee at Chicago for the Cubs, Detroit at Tampa Bay, Philadelphia at Texas, Minnesota at Kansas City, the New York Mets at Miami, Pittsburgh at Cincinnati, Toronto at St. Louis, Chicago White Sox at the Houston Astros, Colorado at San Diego, the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim at Oakland, the Arizona Diamondbacks at the Los Angeles Dodgers, and the Cleveland Guardians at the Seattle Mariners. When I read you off that list, was this a good move by Major League Baseball to have all 15 teams come into opening day with us? And not only that, but to have the matchups that we have, are there matchups? I know you talked about the Yankees matchup, but are there other matchups that you've circled today that you feel like are really, really good ones, be them in division or just in general?
Oh, just in general. I mean, I've looked at all the games, and the first game I look at, is, of course, is the Yankees and the Giants. The Giants years ago had won 3 championships in 5 years or 6 years with Bruce Bochy as the manager, and Brandon Crawford was a shortstop for San Francisco, and he's still a shortstop for San Francisco, even though San Francisco doesn't do much. The Yankees are certainly going to be favored in the American League, of course. They got the best pitcher in the league, Garrett Cole. They have 595 strikeouts since signing with the Yankees in 2020. He's an absolute killer on the mound. They just don't have enough behind him. Their one guy, I forgot his name. I'm so bad with names. Anyway, he got hurt. Now he's out for the whole year. But the good news for the Yankees is that they got a shortstop, but they have Anthony Volpe. He was the number 5 pick for the Yankees, and he had a super strong spring training. I watched him play. I watched him make some serious plays. He's only, 5'10", 180 pounds. He's all over the place. And he's going to make this opening day lineup his shortstop. I mean, here's a kid from New Jersey who just had the Yankees in his backyard, been busting his ass for years to try to play baseball, and here he is going to be the opening. Oh, I think so. Going to be the opening day shortstop for the Yankees, and he's a player. So that game in itself, they're probably going to have half of New Jersey over there watching him play. So that game in itself is going to be fun to watch. And of course, Garrett Cole is once he gets off to a good start, very difficult to hit him. With good pitchers like Cole and Scherzer and the rest of these guys, you got to get him early. If you don't get him early, they get in their rhythm and they start snapping balls off and throwing 100-mile-an-hour fastballs, and then you're in a world of hurt. So I'm looking forward to their very first game, and that's the one that I'll talk about, just what I just talked about.
Yeah, and you mentioned Anthony Volpe, the opportunity for him. He's the youngest New York Yankee to start on opening day since Derek Jeter. So in good company, and really excited for him. Very much looking forward to this for him and his family. A beautiful story, and, beautiful to be in pinstripes. We know the history of that, not just in baseball, but in sports in general. PJ, our poll that we started last week ended this morning. Who would you rather have on your team, Shohei Ohtani or Mike Trout? You may be surprised here. 4.3% Mike Trout, 95.7% Shohei Ohtani. It's not close. People between the two of them saying, okay, if I had a choice of Shohei Ohtani or Mike Trout, if I'm the Angels and I had to pick one, I'm picking Shohei Ohtani. 95%.
I don't blame the people for voting that way. I mean, certainly we saw it in the World Baseball Classic. I mean, the guy, it looks like he takes over everything when he's on. He's an extraordinary player. Mike Trout is Mike Trout. I mean, Mike Trout is Mike Trout. He's got 3 MVPs. He's just barely 30 years old, and he's probably going to get a few more before he can retire. But Ohtani will give him a run for his money. The problem I have with the Ohtani Trout situation is that they don't have enough of a backup for him. They don't have enough of a team for him. With Anthony Rendon coming back, I hope he's going to be 100%. Other than that, you got 3 guys who are not going to carry a team. So I looked at I think the Angels are going to be probably mid-pack somewhere, maybe a 500 ball club, maybe a little bit more. It all depends on if Ohtani can pitch every 5th or 6th day, and he's going to hit every day. So, this kid, he's not a kid anymore. He's 28 years old, and he's an international kid. You just can't put that much pressure on him to carry your team. And Trout, I mean, Trout, he carried the team for the first 5 years. It's unreasonable to ask them to do that. So I want to see some pitching from LA, and I want to see some good hitting. So I want to be able to see Trout rest every once in a while instead of having to get hurt, stay off the RF for a while. Ohtani, if he gets hurt, the game is over. If he throws his arm out, forget about it. Not only will he not pitch, but he won't be able to bat either because he can't extend with his arms. it's a tough situation. I don't want them to overuse Ohtani, and certainly Trout will probably play 150. I hope he'll play 150 games this year, because if he puts up the numbers that he normally does, he'll be MVP again. Last year he was out for a quarter of the season, still hit 40 home runs. So, and the one he hit on the very last day of the season was the second longest it was hit last year. Yeah. 469 feet in the upper deck. So there's a lot to look forward to, and there's a lot of baseball to be played.
That coming from Papa Joe here as we celebrate opening day for baseball in 2023. A lot of great stuff coming up, more conversation to be had. I want to take a step aside from baseball for a second to shout out the fact that there is an opportunity, and in my predictions for the weekend, these weren't my preliminary ones, these are my predictions for the sake of predictions for the Final Four. I picked Miami and FAU, which would be an all-Florida championship for the NCAA Division I men's basketball tournament, meaning that the state of Florida would win no matter what. I do want to let people know this, as the FAU Owls fans have been connecting with me on social media, and I appreciate it. So I do want to give a shout out to FAU_Owls_Nest for what they posted. If you cannot make it to Houston to see the FAU team take on San Diego State in the Final Four, these are the locations that you can have watch parties at in the state of Florida alone. Boca Raton, Beer Garden. Boca Raton, Irishmen. Boca Raton at Hooters. Boca Raton, Yard House. Boca Raton, 2 locations for Duffy's Sports Bar. In Boca, the Miller's Ale House. In Delray Beach, Tin Roof, also Brews Room Sports Grill. In Boynton Beach, Brews Room Sports Grill. Jupiter, Stadium Grill. In Coral Springs, Brews Room Sports Grill. In Plantation, Florida, Duffy Sports Grill. In Fort Lauderdale, Tin Roof. In Orlando, Tin Roof on International Drive. Vero Beach, American Icon Brewery. In Cocoa Beach, JT's Social Bar. In Melbourne, Chumley's Depot. In Jacksonville, Ardwolf Brewing Company. In Tallahassee, Corner Pocket Bar and Grill. And in Fort Myers, Duffy Sports Grill. So I just wanted to read that list off to you to let you know, if you're an FAU fan or you're becoming an FAU fan, you have a million places to go in Florida to go watch this game. We will take a step aside for a fast break on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. When we come back, Papa Joe will tell me if my Arizona Diamondbacks can win more than 30 games this year. That's coming up right after this, where sports meets life on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. Stay with us. Avicoli's, located on the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road in Liverpool, New York, has been your trusted neighbor for decades. Located just steps from Liverpool High School, we're happy to have the Liverpool Warriors on-site, on-location broadcast at Avicoli's through Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora every single month, featuring student athletes, coaches, and administration throughout the year from Liverpool High School. Head out to Avicoli's today on the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road in Liverpool, New York, open Tuesday through Sunday for lunch, dinner, and drinks. We'd love to see you out there. And of course, you can call them at 315-622-5100 for takeout, delivery, and catering. That's 315-622-5100. And also find them on myavicolis.com. That's myavicollis.com. Having peace of mind when you're out of town that your furry-loving friend is safe and sound means taking them to Canine Campground, because we all know that when it comes to the love of our pets, it goes well beyond the call of duty to make sure they're safe and sound. Right, Lily? So take a ride to 242 Johnson Street in East Syracuse, New York, and see Canine Campground and where your dog will be staying, in the classic cabin, the executive cabin, the grand cabin, or of course the luxury cabin, because if you know Lily, you know she loves luxury. Now you don't have to wait to the last minute to find a family member or a friend that'll take your dog for a few days. Call Canine Campground at 315-299-4013. That's 315-299-4013. Their drop-off and pickup times are Monday through Sunday. Check K9campground.com for more information. That's the letter K, the number 9, and campground spelled with a K.com. K9campground.com.
When you're going out of town, bring your dog to Canine Campground.
PB&J's Lunchbox, the food truck that you love finding all throughout Central and Upstate New York, now has a street-side cafe. So when you're craving their traditional favorites as well as their out-of-box amazing menu items, you can now head to 663 Old Liverpool Road in Liverpool, New York. Located just minutes from the highway, the Thruway, Destiny USA, and Onondaga Lake Parkway, PB&J's Lunchbox Street-Side Cafe is there for you Monday through Saturday from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m., serving breakfast, lunch, and dinner all throughout the day. Get breakfast for dinner, dinner for lunch, whatever you fancy, including their award-winning grilled peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Find them at 663 Old Liverpool Road in Liverpool, New York. PB&J's Lunchbox, where we love to know what's in your lunchbox. This is a special message from 317 at Montgomery restaurant owner Joel Carpenter. Open Tuesday through Saturday for your dining pleasure on 317 Montgomery Street in Syracuse, New York.
We wanted to be a part of the resurgence of Syracuse. We saw a lot of money being put into bringing people back downtown and thought that, we'd like to be a part of that. I love putting together a good dish where people see it first, they fall in love with it, and then it tastes just as good as it looks. We want to provide the best food in Syracuse that we possibly can, and we want you to leave here talking to your family, your friends about what you had to eat first and foremost, but also our service, and to walk out feeling like you're part of our family. I work out in the front of the house a lot, and I love walking to every single table, asking them how everything is, and people looking at me and smiling and saying, this is the most amazing short rib I've ever had. This is the most amazing filet I've ever had. And Donna is great. Sarah's amazing. Thank you for coming over and talking to us. And them just being truly happy for the experience that they've gotten.
317 at Montgomery Restaurant, part of the fabric of downtown Syracuse, located on 317 Montgomery Street in Syracuse, New York. Open Tuesday through Saturday for a unique and memorable dining experience. Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside of the Cafe Kubal Studios, hanging out with you where sports truly meets that thing called life. We appreciate you being here every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time, and I am having a fantastic day today with PJ because it's opening day of baseball. Happy opening day, everyone. All of your teams are in action. All 30 teams, 15 games, starting at 1, ending at potentially 1 in the morning. This is like the round of 64 in March Madness when you have games from noon to midnight. Well, now you have games from 1 until maybe 1 in the a.m. tomorrow morning for opening day of baseball. I'm ecstatic. I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it. To get to some of the other messages we have here, let's see here. So there we go. And D-backs still got to continue to stockpile young talent and arms, but I would take the over on their projected win total. Taking the over on 74.5 wins is what Greg said. Sadly, I don't see them making the playoffs in a very tough NL West, but the Diamondbacks are currently undefeated. Yes, they are. The Diamondbacks are undefeated. I love that. And just like I said last year, and PJ kept getting on me about it, but I said, PJ, there's 12 games left, and mathematically the Diamondbacks are still in it. There's 8 games left, and mathematically the Diamondbacks are still in it. As long as they were mathematically still in the postseason, I reminded PJ. So as Greg says, my Diamondbacks are currently undefeated, I would say to Papa Joe, in the effort of continuing our conversation and being consistent, Papa Joe, it is Thursday, March 30th, 2023, and mathematically, the Diamondbacks are still in the playoff hunt right now.
You have no shot.
Which is the exact same answer that he gave me last year. So, excited to see it. But how do you feel about my Diamondbacks, PJ? I want to get your thoughts. Are we? There's 162 games, Am I getting at least half wins? Am I getting 81 wins? Or, what do you think? What do you think about these D-backs?
Daniel, that you're really stretching to get 81 wins. You really, really are. But, I'll watch them. I'll watch them every once in a while. Who I'm going to watch today is my Brewers.
Yeah.
My Brewers are teeing off against the Cubs, which is always a good series because they're in the same division. And they go at each other pretty good. Corbin Burns, who was a 2021 Cy Young Award winner for National League, is going to start. And he's tough, period. And Chicago is going to throw Marcus Stroman, who's bounced around the league a few places. Sometimes he acts like a punk, but he's a real good pitcher. One of the really good players that I'm going to watch in this game is Dansby Swanson. He used to be with Atlanta for several years, and he signed a free agent deal with the Cubs. So the Cubs should be pretty strong this year. And if Stroman and his guys can pitch well, and Swans can play, he plays a good shortstop. He's a good hitter. He's a good all-around ball player. So they're going to be playing at Chicago, I believe, and it's probably going to be 34 and windy down there. It usually is. So, I'll look forward to that game, too.
Yeah, and I'm going to put up a poll right now on Twitter at CallDT. That's CALLDT. So make sure you vote in this poll. I do it with Papa Joe all the time. In the spirit of MLB Opening Day, who will have more wins this season? And I ask this out loud because I want PJ to answer it, and anybody that's watching or listening can feel free to answer this as well. And I'm putting it up currently on social media. So I would love for you all to answer it on Twitter. That's by going to @CallDT on Twitter. That's CALLDT on Twitter. So make sure that you do that right now because I would love to get your thoughts. In the spirit of MLB Opening Day, who will have more wins this season? The New York Yankees or the New York Mets?
Oh, that's a real good question. A very, very good question. The Mets have two Neanderthals that are pitching for them, Verlander and Scherzer, together about 100 years old. The season rests with those arms. Again, I don't like to play favorites here, but if Scherzer and Verlander are anywhere close to where they should be, I think the Mets can carry on. It's a very difficult division. The Braves, even though they lost Swanson, are going to be favored in that division. And, of course, the Yankees don't have anyone to battle against. Baltimore's pitiful. Boston's nothing. Toronto's got the only shot at them, but, Yankees could limp into the playoffs and still have a good enough team to win. Yeah, it's a tough question, Daniel. That's a good question. I don't know if I can answer that question. You want me to answer that question?
Answer that question.
Okay, answer that question. Okay, since I favor pitching and defense, I'm going to say that the Mets are the better team right now, and as they continue playing forward, I think I like the Mets pitching and defense.
Yeah, I just put it up on Twitter. It is live. It'll be live for 7 days, and that's because that's the longest you can have a post on Twitter for when it comes to a voting, polling type of thing. So this will end at 10:44 or 10:45 next week. So in the middle of PJ and I talking, we'll see the full voting here. But on Twitter, @CallDT, once again, CALLDT, go to Twitter, find me, follow me, answer this poll question. In the spirit of MLB Opening Day, who will have more wins this season, the New York Yankees or the New York Mets? PJ says the Mets, and I say, hold on, I got something here in the studio that I can use, and it is called a drum roll. If any of you wonderful people have ever heard one of these things before, it is called the drum roll, and it is time for me to tell you who I'm picking in the poll that I just put up. Who do I think will have more wins this season, the Yankees or the Mets? Hold on. The New York Mets will have more wins this season than the Yankees. I'm picking the New York Mets to have just a little more. I think both teams can get to 100 something. And I think the Mets are just going to squeak by, just going to get by. Maybe I'll say that they can get 100. If the Yankees get like 105 105 or 100, and if the Yankees get 107, I think the Mets are going to get just a little bit more. If I had to pick feet to the fire today, 111 wins for the Mets, 107 for the Yankees. But I think both teams are going to be good. I think they're both going to be playoff teams, but I'm going to pick the New York Mets to have the more wins this season than the New York Yankees. Tough here, but as PJ said, it's about that pitching, especially when you get in those tight games late on in the season. You got to have the rotation from beginning to end, and the Mets have had it more than the Yankees have. So I'm going to say the Mets will have more wins this season than the Yankees. However, I hope that both teams make it to the postseason. And can we get a friggin' Subway Series, World Series? Can we do that? Can we do that? Can I buy tickets now in anticipation of that so that I don't have to pay $1,000 a ticket? I can get them today for like $62. Can we make that happen? Because I would love to see a Subway. I still haven't seen a Subway Series, and I would love to see it. I know it happens a couple times a year. Would love to see it in the World Series, but I'm going to go with the Mets to have a slight edge over the Yankees in total wins this season. However, I really believe that this is going to be a wonderful season, a playoff season for both teams, which I'm looking forward to. PJ, going up and down the line, as we talked about games that you're looking forward to, any other storylines or things that you'd like to get to before we jump to the Jaguars?
I've got the Mets and the Marlins game I'd like to watch. Scherzer's going for the Mets and Sandy Alcantara for Miami, and both of these guys are Cy Young Award winners. Of course, Scherzer's a 3-time winner. Alcantara won it last year. So the Mets are going to know where they stand real quick because Alcantara is no slouch, man. He's a tough pitcher. He's a lefty. He's got all sorts of weird pitches, and he's just a good, really good, tough pitcher. The Marlins, you know, my man Donnie Baseball is not doing that anymore down there in Miami. I don't know why, but he did the best he could. I thought he did a really good job with down there. I don't know if Miami's going to amount to anything, but I know the Mets will, and I think the Mets will get off to a good start with this one right here.
Yeah, you know,
there are a couple of games I'm looking at, but you know, I just keep looking for them.
Yeah, so I mean, like you said, you brought up the Mets and the Yankees. What are the other ones that you circled today?
I got the Angels, of course, and the Athletics. Ohtani's pitching for them. That's all you got to say. That's all you got to say. I mean, the A's are no bargain either. Yeah. If Trout is playing anywhere near to what he should be, I think that they should win this game easy. Although Trout didn't play that much in the preseason because he was busy with the World Baseball Classic, and I guess that's a real good way to start the season is playing against live pitching, really good live pitching before they start the season. Looking at the Diamondbacks and the Dodgers. The Dodgers throwing Julio Urias, who he was in the top 5 Cy Young Award winning last year. I mean, J.D. Martinez is coming over from Boston to be with the Dodgers now, and that makes things real tough for your D-backs, Daniel. Really tough.
Yeah. It's all right. I know they play in a really difficult division. I understand that. The way that I feel about the Diamondbacks division is it's time to talk about the Jaguars. That's how I feel. So, with Diamondbacks, I love you. Do what you got to do. Stay out of the dungeon. We know the Rockies have had good days. We know that obviously the Dodgers have had good days. The Giants have had good days. It's a tough division to play in, but I believe and I hope and I'll be with you for 162 games because that's what we do. That's what real fans do. Fake fans show up whenever they want to show up. Everybody's going to come to a party when you're, when everything's going well. Everybody come to your house for a party, but are they going to sit with you at lunch? That's the question. I sit with my team at lunch. I just don't go to their party. So with that being said, early polling has come in. 66.7% of you have picked the Mets to have more wins than the Yankees. 33.3% have picked the Yankees. So with that being said, let's jump into Jacksonville and that schedule and everything that's coming up here. We're going to talk about some things with the Jaguars. Home games this season. The Jaguars will welcome Pat Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. They will welcome potentially Brock Purdy and the San Francisco 49ers. They will welcome Joe Burrow in the Cincinnati Bengals. They will have, once again, I don't know how this happened twice, but they will have maybe Lamar Jackson with the Baltimore Ravens. They will have whoever the Carolina Panthers decide to select, and if they have a rookie quarterback that's going to be under center for them, they will have Desmond Ridder, my dude from Cincinnati that I told you within the first 2 seasons would take over the Atlanta Falcons offense, coming from the Cincinnati Bearcats and helping the team to their first ever college football playoff, in which Nick Saban, the head coach of Alabama, told me in response to my question that team deserved to be there. And of course, the Titans, the Colts, and the Texans in division of the AFC South will also be games that we will see in Jacksonville. So, I mean, there's a London game within that package of reality, but that's what the home system looks like. The away games, these are some games your boy can travel to. Tampa, not too far away. The New Orleans Saints, I love New Orleans. Cleveland Browns, and here's 2 games where I have been to their stadiums. Well, and I've been to the Tampa Stadium as well. But here's 2 teams that aren't too far away. One of them's about a 5-hour drive. The Pittsburgh Steelers, the Jaguars will be facing on the road. And the Jaguars are coming back to Buffalo, which you know that your boy wants to be there for that game. And by the grace of God, scheduling-wise, hopefully, that'll be a game that I will be at in Buffalo. So some good teams coming up, good games coming up. What do you think about it, PJ? You got Kansas City, San Fran, Cincinnati, Baltimore, Carolina, Buffalo, Pittsburgh, New Orleans, Tampa without Tom Brady. Looks like it's setting up to be an awesome season for Jaguars fans.
It is, and I think we have to temper our feelings here, because we know what we saw last year, and we know what we're going to expect this year, and hopefully it'll come to fruition. This team is built now to win. They are on the threshold of doing great things, and it all started with the quarterback and the coach. I just can't wait for the season to start. I want to get into the training camp early enough so I can figure out who's doing what and where, and who's going to do what, going where, something like that. I think they're going to be favored in their division, and I think they could be one of the early favorites to make the playoffs and maybe even the Super Bowl. This team is ready to go. They've stockpiled their picks. They've drafted wisely. They've traded well. They signed their quarterback of the future. They're got the best coach in the business, one of the best, and they are ready to rock and roll. And I can't temper my enthusiasm enough. I mean, this is it for us, Daniel. This is it. This is the year for us.
Yeah, I mean, you hope, because, a few years ago when Jacksonville was 4 points out, 4-point loss, so 5 points out of the Super Bowl just a few years ago. I was in that stadium. I was at that game. I felt that in the moment, on site, on location, going into that locker room and seeing all of it. So with that being said, I know what it's like to see Jacksonville almost get there, and then I know what it's like that the next season they fell off the cliff. So this time around, let's see if they can not fall off the cliff, hold forward, keep doing their thing, keep being positive, and keep getting in the right direction here. So I am very much looking forward to the Jacksonville Jaguars as they move forward on their season. And with that being said, in a hopeful move in the right direction and building off of success of last year, and being consistently good, and not just have that every squirrel gets a nut type of season. If Jacksonville could put together back-to-back strong seasons and go one step further, then yes, things are working in Jacksonville, and I hope they are. One of the things that's happening in Jacksonville, folks, is that Calvin Ridley, who the Jaguars went out and took a flyer on when he was suspended last season for betting $1,500, I think, on a game or a couple games. By the way, folks, this is where Roger Goodell, NFL commissioner, loses me. You can now bet from your seat at an NFL game. Anybody can bet, because betting has been legalized. You got a team in Vegas. You got betting like crazy. No matter how people have tried to stop it, DraftKings and other systems like that are afloat and up and running. Yet you punish a man for an entire season for betting when the NFL is making money hand over fist because they allow such things. So you're open to betting while you punish someone for betting, and you punish Calvin Ridley more than you punish people for domestic violence in the NFL, which is insane. But he's back, and he's a Jaguar, and he's going to wear number 0, which makes me believe that he feels disrespected. You wear 0, 0's a nothing number, right? 0 is a virtually invisible number. It's kind of like the number you wear when you say, you don't think I'm anything but a 0. So let me prove myself. If this is a prove yourself comeback year for Calvin Ridley, I'm happy he's doing it in teal. Your thoughts?
Well, first let me say that Goodall's an idiot. And all the idiots that run these teams are going to put him back in continue to put him back in power, probably another 5 years for another $100 million contract. He's nothing but a puppet for the owners. There's no reason he should have came down so hard on Ridley for this. Look at these guys bet all the time, anywhere, any place, anytime. They can do it from their phone. They can do it from their bookies. They can do it anywhere. I mean, Calvin, you didn't use your head, I guess. You got caught, but I don't. Anyway, forget about that. Ridley is now with us, and you're going to see him really take over because I watched him at Alabama. And if you're looking for a receiver to stretch the field for Lawrence, it's him. He's 6'1", maybe 205, 210, flies, got all sorts of moves. He's an extremely good football player. And I'm looking for, matter of fact, I would like to see the first play of the season go air it out for 50 yards just to let everyone know that this guy can run. So I'm looking forward to it. He's just going to have to get by. He's going to have to forget about what happened to him. And, he lost a year's earning potential there. And now he's with a real good team. But the only thing I don't understand is the 0. What the hell's with the 0 stuff?
I do. I mean, I think wearing 0 is saying like, hey, you think I'm a nobody. I'm going to show you I'm a somebody. That's how I look at it.
A number 0. I guess so. But anyway, Calvin Ridley should become one of Trevor's very favorite receivers, and he's going to acquit himself very well, I think.
Yeah, so Calvin Ridley, and I'm looking at some of the numbers here that, what he bet on the games might have been more than $1,500 and this, that, and whatever. But again, the NFL has a gambling policy for its players, but it benefits from not having a gambling policy for its fans. So whatever that means. Greg said Jaguars got the opposite of the D-backs division position. With the exception of the Jags, the AFC South team have serious quarterback issues. The division is ripe for the Jaguars taking. So, yeah, you know what? I mean, listen, I look at this and I take everything with we got to, you got to lace up, you got to play the games, you got to win. One of the guys that won't be lacing up for the Jaguars this season is breaking my heart because I have built a relationship with him. This is the tough part of the business when it comes to the world of sports. You build relationships and you see people go. Calais Campbell, AJ Boye, guys that I built relationships with and really, really thought were bringing positives to Jacksonville. And now Marvin Jones Jr. I'm so happy for my buddy Johnny, my resident Detroit Lions fan in Central New York. So happy for him that he's getting Marvin Jones back, a more seasoned Marvin Jones. But I'm heartbroken that when I go into the locker room, I'm not going to see my dude. And, I'd go up to him after a while after, we had talked once or twice and this and that. And he'd give me a big smile, slap my hand, give me a hug. We talk about God. We talk about faith, not just football. And I've had some of my best conversations with him. I'm going to be sharing those over this week so that we can all reflect and cry together because I'm going to do that off the air. But Marvin Jones Jr. to me is he's been such a treasure to Jacksonville. He's been a part of the movement. And a guy like him is not a guy you want to see go, because he's not just a talented person. He's a good locker room guy, a faith guy, a God person. He's the one that looked me in the eye and said that the difference between last year and this year is that they got the right coach in Doug Peterson. So I'm really sad this morning to see this news last night, and I'd love to get your thoughts on it, PJ, because I know when I walk into that locker room for the first time, I'm going to look over to the left and my heart's going to feel that little hit, because I knew exactly where Marvin Jones's locker was.
Well, you'll be able to make new relationships, of course, and you can always keep track of Marvin through the internet again if you need to.
Yeah.
But I think that there's a good group of wide receivers, and of course the tight ends also at the end coming out of the backfield. There's not going to be any lack of talent on the team, and any lack of talent anywhere on the team, offense or defense. I think Pedersen acquitted himself perfectly in the first year here. Didn't start out good, but he asserted himself. He got the guys to buy in, and now look where we are. They were in the playoffs, and now this year they may even have a chance to make the Super Bowl. So the defense holds up, and they can protect Lawrence, then we should see a lot of good things happening at Jacksonville. Marvin Jones Jr. will probably end his career in Detroit, and he'll go off into the sunset.
Yeah, and my best to Marvin Jones. He made some big plays this year. I think, people overlook that with Calvin Ridley coming back and some other, pieces, with Christian Kirk and what he's done and Zay Jones. But let's remember Marvin Jones Jr. on Jacksonville for being one of the guys that started the movement that if and when they make it to the playoffs again, if and when they advance to their first ever Super Bowl, Marvin's one of those guys that helped to build that. Calais Campbell, AJ Boye. There's guys that are not going to get credit for it, that deserve credit for it, and I will make sure that they get it. So, I will tell you this, Marvin Jones Jr., if and when that Super Bowl comes, he deserves part of the credit of building that foundation. Who doesn't build that foundation and deserve that credit? Jalen Ramsey. So...
he's got a pretty good quarterback up in Detroit, too. So he's going to be seeing some nice balls coming his way. Goff is no slouch.
So with that being said, for Papa Joe, any final notes here, PJ, as it's Major League Baseball opening day, the NFL is getting ready for the draft, the Jaguars have Calvin Ridley, and they're getting ready to go. Any final note that you would like to make as we get set to bid everyone adieu this morning?
No, I just wanted to, the season get off to a good start, and hopefully then the amount of injuries will be small, and that the best teams win, play. Don't throw each other beanballs so we can watch a decent game. I'm very much in favor of some of the changes that the MLB has made. I think that the average game in the preseason was quickened by 26 minutes. That's significant. Now, if the umpires can keep their cojones, then they can continue reining in the slow players, the guys that take too long on the mound, the guys that step out of the batter's box and fix their glove 50 times. Yeah. Not going to be necessary anymore. Pitch, hit, play ball.
Coming from Papa Joe, PJ, happy opening day. Starting at 1 o'clock, less than 2 hours away, you will see baseball. It's happening, and snow happened yesterday in Central New York. I just want to remind you all of that. Take care. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay.
See ya. That coming from PJ here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside of the Cafe Kubal Studios. So happy to be here with you. And, honestly, it's opening day. Like, Major League Baseball, Thursday, March 30th. It's opening day, and we get to do it on the show where Papa Joe is. Like I said, God is great. God doesn't make mistakes. No coincidences, God incidences. That when baseball stopped, we were able to talk about it. The day baseball came back was on a Thursday when Papa Joe and I were, do our normal broadcast. And when baseball comes back in 2023, we're here today on March 30th to do this together. It's these moments where everything lines up perfectly, where you say to yourself, what an awesome God, what awesome people, what an awesome life. And what a blessing to be here with you this morning. We'll take a step aside for a fast break. We'll be back right after this to wrap up today's broadcast of Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora.
Cafe Cabal offers same-day local delivery of our products, offering no delivery charge for Onondaga County. Shop cafecabal.com for fresh roasted coffee beans, cold brew, travel mugs, and all your essential Cafe Cabal needs. Cafe Cabal, coffee for the soul.
This is Amy from Mother's Cupboard, home of the Whole Frittata. We are open daily 6 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. For takeout orders, call 315-432-0942 and tune in to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora for our monthly food challenge and try our Wake Up Call signature menu item available 7 days a week. Here at Mother's Cupboard, we are Central New York, and it's our honor to serve you.
Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory remind us that every day is worth celebrating. Find them at 201 Old 7th North Street in Liverpool, New York. Open Monday through Saturday in-store and all the time online at maandpaspopcorn.com. Serving our Central New York community and beyond, you can order all throughout the country at maandpaspopcorn.com. And remember to get your tins, which have in-store half-price refills forever. Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory, available to you for fundraising and all of your events by calling 315-450-6272. That's 315-450-6272. Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory. How corny are you?
Witty Wicks Candles and Gift Shop, Township 5 Camillus, where you will find handcrafted all-natural soy wax candles over 60 cents to freshen up your home. We carry a wide range of locally made items, Salsa Q's, Syracuse Salt, and Chocolate Pizza Company, to name a few. Let our knowledgeable staff help choose unique gifts and keepsakes for any occasion. Gifts for family and friends, and maybe a little something for yourself. Witty Wicks Candles and Gift Shop, Township 5 Camillus.
This is a special message from Merritt Brady, owner-operator of Chick-fil-A Watertown on 1290 Arsenal Street in Watertown, New York.
Chick-fil-A for me has always been about the people. I think it starts with the strength and leadership of the Cathy family. It's just amazing to see a family-run business reach the altitude that they have. Second mile service is something that we embodied at my previous business, and the ability to make people feel like they're the only person at your establishment, that you are there to serve them that day and looking for those extra ways to make them happy, to anticipate what they need next is what makes me tick. And I'm going to have so many opportunities at Chick-fil-A to do that. It's one of my favorite things to eat in the world. My favorite application question or interview question when I'm interviewing is when I get to, have you ever eaten at Chick-fil-A? And a smile hits both their ears. You know, they can't even answer the question for a second. And when I see that, it's like, man, that's going to be a great hire. They already get it. They already feel it. They already know that we're different. The Chick-fil-A experience, it's a real thing. And then, of course, just our generosity and community involvement and making a positive impact in the lives of our team members, our guests, and the community in general, I think is really the secret sauce.
Here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside of the Cafe Cabal studios, hanging out with you where sports meets that thing called life. We appreciate you being here today, and I want to thank my trio of guests who joined me on the broadcast this morning inside of MonPazPopcorn.com's What's Poppin'. I'll tell you this, folks, once, twice, three times, but it is imperative. When it comes to snacks, we all like snacks. Popcorn, kettle corn. But we're talking about 50 different flavors at any given time. You might have had kettle corn. Have you had strawberry cheesecake kettle corn? Have you had my two favorites put together, the orange cheddar with the caramel corn? in the Chicago, fantastic. Have you had dill pickle? Have you had buffalo wing? Oh my gosh, it's great. Ma and Pa's, the flavors, the sweet, the savory, the cotton candy, the chocolate dipped Oreos, the chocolate dipped pretzel rods, everything that's there at Ma and Pa's, 201 Old 7th North Street in Liverpool, New York. You don't know snacks if you don't know Ma and Pa's. That's how I look at it. So get your popcorn ready, get your kettle corn ready. Whether you're binge watching something on, whether you're watching The Mandalorian, or you're watching the new series with Kiefer Sutherland on Paramount Plus, or you're Ted Lasso in and up, or it's the NCAA Tournament, or a movie, whatever it is. You Netflix and Ma and Pa's. That's what we do. 201 Old 7th North Street in Liverpool, New York. Head out there today. Let them know the Wake Up Call sent you, and get your snacks right. That's what we need to do. I want to thank everybody that's been here on YouTube.com and Facebook.com, both /WakeUpCallDT, Facebook.com /LiveNowDT, and of course on WakeUpCallDT.podbean.com for tuning in live around the world, the East Coast, the West Coast, the Midwest, and around the globe. Once the shows go live, they jump into the archive. We'll be adding a bunch of stuff to the archive today. Amazon Music, Audible, iHeartRadio, iTunes and Apple Podcasts, MixLR, Player FM, Podbean, Podvine, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, YouTube. There's so many places to go to. Search Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora on any one of these, or one word, Wake Up Call DT. Big thanks to our incredible team of partners: Cafe Kubal, Carvel DeWitt, the Wildcat Sports Pub, Witty Wicks, Canine Camp Dog Daycare, PB&J's Lunchbox, Avicoli's, Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory, Chick-fil-A Cicero and Chick-fil-A Clay, Great Lakes Honda City, Chick-fil-A Watertown, Canine Campground Dog Boarding, Pizza Man, Mother's Cupboard, where my Cuse McMother sandwich is over a month old, and we have done fantastic the first week, the second week, and all the way through. And now when you walk in, the board's up. You walk into the Mother's Cupboard for the first time ever. I don't know anybody else that's ever had this. I don't think that there has historically been somebody with their own sandwich promotion meal at Mother's Cupboard, which is a Syracuse, New York staple. Go and get the Cuse McMother today. It is my spin on the breakfast sandwich. Bacon, egg, and cheese inside a French toast. You can cut it up and have it with syrup, or you can eat it like a sandwich. So make sure you go out and try it today, 7 days a week, 6 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. on-site on location, Mother's Cupboard, 3709 James Street in Syracuse, New York, and 317 at Montgomery Street. The name of the restaurant is the name of the location. If you're looking for an elegant place to go for an anniversary, birthday, you're going to ask somebody to marry you, you're going on a first date. Literally, 317 at Montgomery Street is the bookend place. It's the place you go on the first date, and then years later, it's the place you go to ask that same person to marry you. 317 at Montgomery Street is built-in memories, guest service, fantastic food. Take advantage of the fact that we have one of the best restaurants I've ever been to in the country right here in Syracuse. 317 at Montgomery Street. The name of the restaurant is the name of the location in downtown Syracuse. And we are, of course, proud to be the exclusive multimedia marketing partner of your up every single month on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, bringing you unprecedented coverage of the Dolphins, historically connecting you with these teams and these wonderful student athletes, coaches, and administration. Wednesdays at 9 a.m. every single week, we feature our Dolphin Time, where we dive into the stories of the Dolphins. Every first and third Wednesday of each month, we bring you AD and DT with Athletics Director Bob Beretta and myself, Dan Tortora, giving you our thoughts on many different topics, including realignment and reclassification. We have been the source of realignment and reclassification when it comes to Lemoyne. For almost a year now, we have brought you this consistent coverage. So if you have heard anything about realignment and reclassification, it has come from Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, and I want to thank Bob Beretta, the athletics director, for that, and I want to thank President Dr. Linda Lemura for allowing me the opportunity to be the home to tell the story of where Lemoyne may be going and where they may be staying. So much appreciation to them for that. And a big thanks to the coaches who have joined me on the conversation as well. In our Dolphin Dives, coaches, student athletes, administration, future Dolphins, and alumni are here on Wake Up Call every second and fourth Wednesday inside a Dolphin Dive, which comes to you Wednesdays at 9 as well. We'll have a special Dolphin Dive this Friday, tomorrow, to end out the month, as I speak with Liz Bevel, the head coach of the 6-2 women's lacrosse team at Lemoyne, who is getting ready for their Fin Frenzy event, where they will not only have a game at 11 o'clock this Saturday, April 1st at Ted Grant Field here in Syracuse, New York, but they will also do a lot of great things with the community, including fan signing events and a wonderful Fin Frenzy to celebrate the athletics in general, to celebrate women's and men's lacrosse, and to obviously watch a fantastic game coming up here with Liz Bevel and her team. So very excited to have her on the show for a bonus Dolphin Dive. You can find all of our content with the Dolphins by going to the Lemoyne tab on wakeupcalldt.com, and you can also subscribe to our YouTube channel on youtube.com/wakeupcalldt. For more information on your Dolphins, go to lemoynedolphins.com. The Bryan and Stratton College Bobcats of Syracuse, proud to be here with you in the Bobcat Buzz that happens every single month on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. Unprecedented coverage of the Bryan and Stratton College Bobcats of Syracuse for men's and women's soccer, men's and women's basketball, and their inaugural season of baseball happening here inside of this wonderful community of Central and Upstate New York. The Bobcats are here with you with stories from administration, coaches, and student athletes every single month of the year. And the Bobcats will have new Bobcat Buzz coming up very soon on Wake Up Call. Stay close to our social media, Facebook at Wake Up Call DT, Twitter at Call DT, and Instagram at Wake Up Call _DT for more information. If you want to watch all of our videos and our special series with the Bobcats inside of the Bobcat Buzz, simply go to the wakeupcalldt.com website and click on BSC Syracuse. And you can also find all the content by subscribing to our YouTube channel on youtube.com/wakeupcalldt. For more information on your Bobcats, go to syracuse.bscbobcats.com. With that being said, here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports meets life, I want to thank you for being a part of the show as always, wherever you're listening, inside of Central and Upstate New York, as well as around the country and the world. It means so very much to me that you share your morning with me. I live my dreams every day. I do what I love, and I love what I do. And I'm happy to come to you and be a part of your life, to either hopefully brighten it up if it's not that bright, or to keep it bright if it is. So I send you all my love. I pray for you all. God bless. No stress. Do your best. We'll talk soon. Have a fantastic day. Happy opening day of baseball. Facebook at Wake Up Call DT. Twitter at Call DT. Instagram at Wake Up Call _DT. We'll talk soon. Be safe. Stay well. And God bless.